Jehovah's Witnesses exposed. Now in this particular video, we're going to break down all of the steps that are easily seen in regards to identifying religious cults and toward helping people to avoid becoming victim to such groups that target people based off their desperate needs and things in which they are seeking to feel like they have some sort of purpose in their lives as identified by these particular groups. So, coming from someone who's been a part of it for so long as an ex Jehovah's Witness, who better to give you a little insight about the experiences than those who have once been a part of it themselves. So, let's go into the first particular subheading that I've made, and let's go over now. Cults. So, everyone knows when you join Jehovah's Witnesses, it seems so harmless and beautiful. So, the idea of a cult, it just immediately escapes your mind. But does that in fact mean that it's not a cult? Well, how about we let the research speaks for itself, and let's identify what a cult is, and let's see if Jehovah's Witnesses fall under any of these categories at all. So I'm gonna break it down into 11 quick steps. So quickly, let's go through these. Number one, in identifying a cult: no tolerance for questions or critical thinking. Number two, no meaningful financial disclosure. Number three, unreasonable fear about the outside world, such as impending catastrophe, evil conspiracies, and persecutions. Number four, there are records, books, news articles, or television programs that document the abuses of the group or leader. The group/leader is always right. And number five. Number six, the group leader is the exclusive means of knowing truth or receiving validation. No other process of discovery is really acceptable or credible. Number seven, extreme obsessiveness regarding the group leader, resulting in the exclusion of almost every practical consideration. Number eight, whenever the group leader is criticized or questioned, it is characterized as persecution. Number nine, uncharacteristically stilted and seemingly programmed conversation and mannerisms, cloning of the group/leader in personal behavior. Number 10, anything the group/leader does can be justified no matter how harsh or harmful. And 11, former followers are at best considered negative or worse, evil apostates and under bad influences. They cannot be trusted and personal contact must be avoided, aka shunning, excommunication, or disfellowshipping. So these are the basic identifying marks to see if you're in fact in a cult. And these are taken from various studies, and a lot of years and research went into identifying these particular marks so that people can see if they were in fact falling victim to a religious cult or any type of cult for that matter. All right. So just really examine those particular steps, do the research yourself, and see if Jehovah's Witnesses seem to stand up to that scrutiny, or do they, if not, fall under all 11 of those categories, which I can factually say they do fall under all of those categories. And another point that I know a lot of the list should mention that I've gathered myself is that the number one thing a cult will always tell you is, oh, we're not a cult. Like everybody else in the world can be cults, but we're not a cult. Just so you know, we're not a cult. Because a cult can't admit to you that it is. Of what basis would that serve for them, right? Like you just can't give the overall truth of what you really are, because then people will stay away from you. So it's kind of like how Satan operates. He's not going to just come up to you and be like, yeah, I'm the devil and I want you to die. He's going to come to you, alluring and in all kind of forms to pretty much try to trick you into coming along to his frame of thinking and doing the things that he promotes. So just understand what a cult is, the definition of a cult, how far these teachings go back, and how much they seem to dominate over religious communities as well. So just kind of understand that. And that's pretty much exactly what Jehovah's Witnesses are. They are in fact a cult by definition. All of the steps in regards to identifying a cult are practically identical to the setup of Jehovah's Witnesses, and everything about it is cult in nature. But of course, your Jehovah's Witness will never tell you that they're a cult. In fact, they'll deny it and pretty much try to teach you, oh no, we're just doing the Bible. But everything about what they're really doing is technically not supported entirely with the scriptures, and a lot of it originates through man-made doctrines, especially when it comes to our cult teachings. The next step is shunning. So Jehovah's Witnesses in fact does the practice shunning, which we talked about in various videos, but let's go into it again, so that everybody can understand this and all of the different steps. So shunning, disfellowshipping, pretty much just casting out a particular person or member that's baptized within this particular religion. And when they are shunned, their name will be announced at the next congregation meeting. After, of course, the elders will pull them into the back room and try to alter their thinking to lead them back into the one thought of the governing body's narrative. But if you seem to not come along into that frame of thinking after they rationalize and try to pinpoint manipulation of certain scriptures to pretty much get you back into the ideology, then you're going to be shunned at the next congregation meeting. Your name will be announced publicly so that all of the members can pretty much know that, okay, this is the go ahead to begin shunning this member. And that means no communication, no talking, no phone calls, no visits, no dealings with this person as long as they are alive, unless they decide to come back. And even then, they still must be shunned and ignored and humiliated as a public warning to all the other members that are still in to not ever deviate from the governing body, who is practically the god of this particular religion. So that's what shunning is. It is a very harmful process. It led a lot of members, former members, to suicide as they lost their entire families and their entire livelihoods, and their minds are so psychologically damaged from always living like the destruction of the end was always coming to get them. They always fear death, so they always feel like God is coming to kill them, and all of the members of Anointed will kill them, and it seriously damages a person mentally. That a lot of witnesses develop mental illnesses and a lot of disorders and so forth from lack of education, and just so many other things. But shunning is a very dangerous policy, and it has strong roots to Freemasons. It has strong roots to pagans. It has strong roots to Illuminati, satanic worship, Baal worship, and it was once actually condemned by the Jehovah's Witnesses organization. But as time progressed, it began to be adopted into the teachings so subtly, and most people don't even know that at one point it was outlawed within the organization of Jehovah's Witnesses to actually practice this, and they actually really spoke the truth about it, and now they adopted the practice itself, and is used as a form of punishment so that the members know that you are never to go against the elites, the leaders, the men who rule this particular organization and act as if they are God, right? But of course, witnesses don't see it like that. They see it as a love and provision to evil, shun somebody until the day that they die, never do good to them, never pray for them, because they say you're not to pray for the members that are shunned now, and just so many wicked things, and shunning has also led to mass murders where members that have been shunned for so long became so depressed and so bothered mentally that they actually drove up and killed their entire families. You can see various publications that was put out in regards to that. Just look it up. The internet makes all of these things readily available, which most witnesses know to not look at, because that's what they are conditioned to do, stay inside of the biased, one-sided narrative. Hence, they never seem to understand the full story of what's really going on, because they only see it from a one-sided perspective. So shunning is very dangerous. It has nothing to do with the scriptures. What they use as the prodigal son was actually contradict shunning, because the father was very forgiving. And on the basis of today, he would still be shunned because of worldly sadness, as noted through various Watchtower articles. If you're only sad on account of the world's, then you're not to be taken back, because it's worldly sadness is what they call it. Then they also use the Good Samaritan story, which contradicts shunning as well, because it's actually seen very much like what shunning would do. You see somebody on the side of a road, and picture if they was a shunned member. You wouldn't do good to them. You would leave them for dead. You would do no good for them. You wouldn't help them. You wouldn't go back for them. And all the other people would pretty much do the same. But then somebody from an entirely different group will come in, take you in, and save your life. And then it says, which one should you be like? And you get the point of the Good Samaritan. Jehovah's Witnesses are the complete opposite of the Good Samaritan. They will leave you on the side of the road to die, and they will shun you until the day that you die, unless you just come back into their form of thinking. And it's not in agreement with that of the scriptures. And it's just amazing that even Jesus himself, along with his Father, they are so forgiving and loving, even to our wicked people. They're calling sinners. They do all of the good, even to those who don't serve them. But then Jehovah's Witnesses develop this judgmental approach to where they actually can render vengeance and render payment according to those sins now. And they pretty much replace God and replace Jesus Christ. And shunning is the most evil practice that ever existed. And a lot of cults do this because it is an effective way of punishing those so that they can stay in line. And this keeps the cults or organization or the societies enriched and their members completely submissive to whatever they decide to do, for fear that they can just take your entire family, friends, your mates, and everybody away from you in an instant. So shunning is pretty much a grudge. It's casting out. The scripture strongly condemns it. If you read Jesus' accounts in Luke, also in Matthew, and where it talks about we're not to just be loving those who are of our own, which Jehovah's Witnesses do, because once you're not of their own, they just shun you and give you the most hatred and blanket it as a provision of love. But Jesus strongly condemns and contradicts every aspect of shunning, and the Bible never supports it. Only isolated scriptures and misinterpretation leads one to actually believe that it is a biblical practice, but it's not. Even Paul's words are manipulated in the First Corinthians, because in the second letter, you can see the overdue sadness that formed as a result. And even if the actual leaders decided to do such measures to a person, the flock was not advocated to do the same thing when you read the entirety of these books. So understand shunning, understand its policies, and you'll understand the very means that cults must shun and penalize its members for leaving, that it serve as an example for others within the cult to not imitate that. And then they must label them as an apostate or somebody evil or somebody that's going to pretty much lead you to Satan and kill you off, and you're going to lose your hope. Like, they have to do these things mentally to a member because it is proven effective and it works to keep them in line. So it's nothing to do with God. It's just a form of punishment that you stay submissive to the cult no matter what they do. You must be submissive and you must obey, or you will be shunned, disfellowship, excommunicated, restricted, whatever you want to call it, casting out. It's an eternal grudge and it's a form of punishment. Now we'll move on to Jehovah's Witnesses in regards to child sex abuse. And Jehovah's Witnesses have over thousands of cases that are of child sex abuse that went unreported, and they'll try to pacify you with a magazine, and you'll hear a governing body member speaking about, that it is so absurd that Jehovah's organization would be, nice, so to speak, to pedophiles, or however he worded it. You get what I'm talking about. And that's pretty much what they do whenever they have stories that come out that are very much true, that can be proven true, that even make it to the courts and that even make it to the mainstream media. They are quick to demonize it as, oh, they're just persecuting us, because the persecution complex dominates in cults as well. You have to always make it seem like you're the victim. So that way, whenever something truly come to the forefront about what the organization has done or what they're in fact still doing, you can always blanket it as, oh, they're just persecuting us. See, that's Satan. And then the members will be like, oh, okay, yeah, they're just probably lying. Yeah, because you only believe the narrative of the leaders. And that's how cults operate, and it's been this way since their very foundation of when cults started to spread abroad amongst many distant lands. So the child sex abuse is a epidemic that's plaguing witnesses worldwide. You have a lot of children that's being molested. You have people that's being raped by elders, but a lot of these cases go unreported due to what they have put in place called the 2-witness rule. And it's pretty much if nobody else was around to witness it happening, then it's pretty much didn't happen. You must just remain quiet and submissive and pretty much not speak up about it, because you don't want to tarnish those organizations' reputation. And that's more important than what's happening to these children and these kids. The standing is more important than the situation that these kids are being placed in every day. So can you imagine being molested and raped and targeted by members who use this to their advantage, right? And this rule actually protected pedophiles, and it actually led them to keep doing it, because some members that are arrested now actually admitted it. That's why they kept doing it, because the rule made it impossible for them to actually pay the penalty for what they was doing, And that's the sad thing about it. Like, children being molested, children being taken advantage of by perverts who are not labeled as such. So you have various members that are pedophiles, but you won't have no way of telling that they are. Like what you do in the territories. If it was a pedophile, we'll have a list that'll say it's a predator or a child sex offender. So we'll make the measures about who goes to the doors, predominantly older men. But when it comes to our within the congregation, it's an entirely different story. It's a protection, and they will never admit that was the case, and how a lot of these reports went unreported and they were swept under the rug, and they were pretty much hidden on a hard drive, and the governing body just pretty much left it to the side, that it not be brought to the forefront, because it would reflect badly on Jehovah's organization, and it would tarnish everything good that they was hoping to build to keep recruiting more and more people. So the child sex abuse is a very sad epidemic that's plaguing Jehovah's Witnesses, and the even sadder part is that now they're only mentioning it because it became so much of an epidemic that they have to now address it. And that's pretty much how Jehovah's Witnesses organization, the governing body, operates. They will continue to just sweep things under the rug and not talk about it constantly and ignore it, and don't seem to give you much of a satisfying answer about it, until it makes public news and it's publicized everywhere, and people start calling them out on it, and it start affecting their attendance, and they're downsizing, and now they have to do something to pacify people and get them some sort of an answer. So then they'll finally make a watchtower or send out some letters to the congregations, and just pretty much say what they want to hear, and then they'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, see, See, go to the jw.org, go to the website. See, go there. And that's always what a witness will tell you because they're not allowed to use their brain or critical thinking skills because courts don't allow that. You only have to be spoken of by means of the material and what the governing body is giving to them. Go up to a witness, ask them any question that seems to startle them, and they'll tell you, go to the jw.org, go to the broadcast, go to the website because that's what they're taught to do. And it's pretty sad. So children are being raped and molested even down to this day. You can see various lawsuits where people have won and how they shun the victims rather than persecute those who did it to them. And they actually provided legal services for a lot of people that was committing the crime, but then was shunning those who was speaking out against it because it was making the organization look bad. And it's very sad that that happened. But these are true. You have so many people who won lawsuits against Jehovah's Witnesses. They have lost millions of dollars, and that's why they are doing so many things that most people don't understand. Why they're downsizing the kingdom halls and merging together the congregations to try to enrich themselves because they're losing out on so much profits. How they're losing out on so many members than what they have you believe about their growth worldwide. It's just so many things that I have seen and I've known from being so observant. It's just hard to pretty much mislead me in regards to Jehovah's Witnesses. I've seen so much and I've known so many educated people within it from all aspects, but it's so much child sex abuse, so much pedophilia, and so much rape that happens, and people that take advantage of women because women don't have much of a say so within the Jehovah's Witnesses organization. They can't really do as much as a man can, and they pretty much treat them like nothing more than just a slave, so to speak. And it's very much sad, but the women don't seem to care because they rationalize the scriptures about how you're supposed to be submissive. But there's a fine line between submission and just flat out being that of a dictatorship, And it's extremely sad that children go through these things and the lawsuits continue to pile up. But the average Jehovah's Witness wouldn't know these things because they'll just read the Watchtower's narrative and everything will be okay in fantasy land, and it's no big deal. And that's very much sad about this group. But you can see the information all over the place. No matter where you look, the Royal Australian Commission and how the governing body had to testify. They had to get legal counsel from worldly lawyers. How ironic is that, And it's just extremely sad. Let's go into the next one, the Freemason connection. Charles Hayes Russell was in fact a Freemason. Jehovah's Witnesses will never seem to get this into their minds because it's just hard to fathom that somebody who's presented so much like God, so to speak, in their eyes, can be connected with Satan. And it breaks their hearts to even fathom the thought. So rather than just acknowledge the overall truth with all of the evidence that supports it, they'll just excuse it and be completely dismissive or even looking into it or believing it because their minds are brainwashed every day, and they're indoctrinated every day by the Watchtower Society, by the Awake magazines, by the publications, the Reasoning from the Scriptures books, the talking points, the meetings, the assemblies, with all the symposiums and so forth. Like they are so coded indoctrination that these members don't even seem to understand that. But all of these things connect you toward Freemasons, even all the things that they're doing. Freemasons dominating brainwashing, indoctrination, subliminal messages, sexual things, because they believe that it gave you magical type of powers, especially with that of homosexuality. The connection of the Masonic pyramid, the all-seeing eye of Horus, and just all kind of manipulations, and takes you right into Freemasons in the Satanic Bible and connects you with Aleister Crowley. And all of these things are readily available, but witnesses do not do the research unless it's from the jw.org website. But all this stuff is out there, like the Knights Templar Masonic symbol, the cross, right? That they use, and the Knights Templar, and how far back these belief systems go with Satanism, right? It is extremely bothering when you are a witness and you see these things and you know what they mean. And if you really are awoken, you don't be pacified by the excuses that these men give you, because you know that they're not inspired of Jehovah, they're inspired of Satan. Hence why Satan is founded deeply within their roots. Rather, it's the Knights Templar Masonic symbol that you can find in satanic churches, the Masonic pyramid that you can find in a lot of belief systems as well, that connects you with the Illuminati Freemasons worship and the New World Order agenda, and how it connects with the New World Translation. Like all of the very words that Jehovah's Witnesses organization use should be red flags in itself, because they are extremely connected with Masonic worship, right? Like they believe in seeking the New World Order, right? Where all of the governments come together and they pretty much become that of God, and all people are enslaved to this totalitarian system. So you have the New World Order as the overall basis for the New World of the Freemasons, and then you get witnesses who make the New World Translation, but we don't see a red flag with that particular chosen name, right? We don't see a particular flag with the logos and the images in which they use, which are completely condemned in the scriptures as well. We don't see the connection of Charles Taze Russell and how he made his riches, or how he even had this idol, this monument built in honor of him right beside his memorial tomb of a Masonic pyramid with the Masonic Knights Templar symbol right in between it, of the inside of the eye, so to speak. And all these things connect you with Satanism. Just look up the Knights Templar symbol, look up Charles Taze Russell's gravesite. The exact same symbol, you get the meaning. And that's why I was once on the earliest articles, the Golden Age, and the earliest editions of the Watchtower, right? So you have the roots in its history right out there for you. But witnesses would just excuse it or make up something, and well, they took it off, which is because every time, like I said before, whenever they get caught, that's when they try to hurry up and do something to pacify, to hurry up and try to justify or rationalize or excuse, because that's what they must do. And the witnesses will eat up anything they say, no matter what the connection is, because the leaders are so infallible, so God to them, that they can't see anything contrary to that. And that's how strong indoctrination and brainwashing is. I was once just like them. But they definitely have a Freemason connection, and they will always seek to deny this, right? But how can you excuse it? If I'm rocking Knights Templar logos, and I know it's connected with Satan, if I'm rocking Masonic Illuminati pyramids and the all-seeing eye, using it in a devilish type of manner, like they use, right, to use it for that evil, rather than seeing it as that God-given spiritual antenna, right, that Jesus talked about, with the light of thine body be the eye, and if the eye be, you know, simple, then the whole body shall be full of light. Right. Most people don't understand the connections in these things. They just see, to excuse so many things and let it go. But they don't understand how deep these things are and how important they are to Satan, the devil. So Freemason connection, Illuminati connection, whatever you want to see it as, the Jehovah's Witness organization was founded by Satan himself. Everything about it attests to that, from the symbologies, the pyramid setup with the elitism type of setup, how the Illuminati does the exact same thing. You must have elites. They must indoctrinate, brainwash. You only must read their material, look through their narrative. They assassinate the character if you speak about the elites in a bad manner. So it's just extremely similar to Freemasons, right? The temples and the secret meetings, and how witnesses use all these words like Watchtower Society, the secret society, New World Order, New World Translation, the same symbols, the same subliminal messages that you'll find in the Watchtower illustrations, like you'll find in Disney Channel and all these other types of things out there, Hollywood, with the subliminal messages, right? With the pedophilia, the sex, words hiding in the clouds, and the pictures within a picture that give you a sinister message subconsciously. Most people just don't understand these things because they're not enlightened and woke enough to really seek what Jesus taught us to do, Yeshua, and what God, Yahweh, was trying to teach us as well. But understand that they are deeply involved with Freemasons, and they're not the only ones. Mormons, Scientology, Hebrew Israelites, all of these religions, for the most part, have these satanic connections, whether they be with the six-pointed satanic star, whether it be with the pagan cross that takes you back to Satanism, rather it be with the um, just all kind of these idols, these images, these cubes, these all of these things that connect you with Satanism and Baal worship, which was happening even in biblical times, right? So just understand the Freemason connection is extremely serious, and they will always seek to deny it, because most witnesses don't even know anything about it, and you will never see a magazine about Freemasons or Illuminati, because it would be so damaging for them to do that. But that's the Freemason connection. Going to the next, false prophets. The Bible is pretty clear that if you give a prophecy and it does not happen and it does not come true, then you're not inspired of God. But yet Jehovah's Witnesses seem to just excuse it as the light is getting brighter, and it's no big deal that we were wrong. We wasn't really wrong. We were just getting a little more insight over time, yada, yada, yada. So pretty much anything they do can always be excused. But if another religion does it, Jehovah's Witnesses will be quick to point out, see, this identifies them as one of the false religions that must be destroyed, right? Part of Babylon the Great. But then when they do everything that are in essence Babylon the Great, it's an entirely different narrative, right? Like the molestation, if Catholics do it or anybody in another religion do it, they'll be quick to say, see, that's how you know they ain't the truth. But then when they do it, oh, you're picking apart Jehovah's organization. You're not trusting in Jehovah to see to these things. Or like it's always some excuse to why you should still stay there, and it's no big deal. Maybe it was just an isolated event in one particular meeting, even though it's a worldwide epidemic. Like they always got some excuse, but if the churches did, it would never be excused, right? And that's how they indoctrinate and get people to come to theirs, because they're so different than the churches, right? But it's not really much of a difference, and they're in fact pretty worse than a lot of religions as well. So It's a lot of false prophecies that they give, and y'all know about all of the end of the world dates. The 1914 was the one that really stuck, but it was various other dates. And if you actually do your research, you'll see that it was several dates, and they all proven untrue. And 1914 stuck, but now you see Idoneus badly falling because of the overlapping generation is now the new doctrine. Remember at one point where they was talking about, was it Rutherford and various and others back in the day, this is the generation that will not by any means pass out, and 1914 is supposed to be the end of the world, but it wasn't. So now it became the time where he just became present invisibly, because now since you didn't see anything physical take place in the spiritual realm, oh, well, it's invisibly, and that's why they use the whole invisible thing, because now it can be excused. Y'all just couldn't see it because it was invisible, it was in a spiritual place. So you saw the events, but you didn't see. So it's always an excuse to try to justify the fact that they lied to you. And that generation pretty much is all died off and it passed out. After 2014, from 1914, that's already 100 years. That's the end of that generation. And most of those people are, in fact, if not already dead. So now they have to make an overlapping generation because that teaching proved false. So they continue to give you bad, bad, bad prophecies and act as prophets, but then claim, oh, well, we're not claiming they're being fallible, but then they give you prophecies and they act as prophets and they act as if they're in direct contact by saying that they're the only lifeline to mankind put in place by God. So they give you so much contradictions, but then they act as if they're not, right? And witnesses continue to excuse and defend because these men essentially are Jehovah to these people, but they will never tell you that because they just don't seem to get it through the brainwashing. But so many false prophecies, and we know the number one thing you're not supposed to do concerning that day and hour. Nobody knows, not even the Son, not even the angels in heaven, but only the Father. You get that specifically from Yeshua himself, right? The Christ. But oh no, let's go ahead and make up dates anyway, considering that Jesus, even though he said that, who cares, because essentially we know better. We're better than the Bible, we're better than the Son of God. So let's just make dates anyway. Like, come on now. It literally tells you don't try to guess that date or don't try to seek to understand what that day is, like when it's going to be. You don't seek the date. You just seek to understand the time frame which you're living in and live accordingly to knowing that it's going to happen at some point, but not scaring people morbidly every day so that they can't even enjoy their lives because God don't even do that compulsion. And also not acting as if you can just guess the date. Oh, 2012. Oh, Y2K. Or 1914. Oh, no, it's coming in 2025. Oh, the Mayan calendar ended. Like they're always trying to predict these dates, and what it does is it make the Bible seem illegitimate because now people feel like, oh, they've been talking about the end of the world since forever. Come on now, seriously. And then they start to not see the importance of it anymore, that sense of urgency, because you have all these religions continuing to try to give you dates and falsifying it. And Joe's witnesses have so many false prophecies on our hands, and the Bible makes it clear false prophets, God have not sent them. They're coming and saying that they're coming in his name, and they're giving you pretty much their own delusions. They're making things up pretty much. And they're inspired of demons. Teachings and utterances inspired by demons that are going forth misleading the entire inhabited earth. And Satan seems to dominate. And that's why you see Satan's face in his logos of all religions for the most part, because he owns them. And false prophets are all that they will give to you. But witnesses don't see that because they want that paradise illusion so badly. And witnesses seem to be the ones that's holding it in their hands and they're dangling it over their faces every day. Don't you want a tiger? Don't you want a lion? Don't you want a brand new house? So just keep following us no matter what we do. Paradise coming. It's coming. It could be tomorrow. And then they continue to buy into that illusion. So it's extremely sad. And then my big one, whitewashing the Bible. And I charge a lot of religions at doing this, especially Christianity and various religions. But even more so, I have to go into the Jehovah's Witnesses organization because they come off so cocky. Like they have so much fact and so much truth. And they're so directly appointed by Holy Spirit. And they're the faithful and discreet slave. And they're the only lifeline to humanity. And everybody else is going to die because you have to be a Jehovah's Witnesses or studying with Jehovah's Witnesses or see them as the right way to go, even though they are not, But just because they come out so badly, you'll think that they have the Bible accurately, right? Since they come out like they're so smart and know everything. Then ask yourself, why do they whitewash the characters of the Bible? Like y'all really see Persians as people that's predominantly with white skin? Do you see people in Ethiopia and places in Africa and all of these different regions that was in biblical times, when the way that the sun affected the skin and the pigmentation and the melanin that had to be present in a lot of these biblical characters? But all these things completely are dismissed and they are not talked about because as European rule started to spread abroad into this world and dominate over society, the whitewashing period began. Now you have Jesus Christ presented as a white man with blue eyes and blonde hair or brunette hair, but predominantly a white figure with white skin, when Jesus Christ, in fact, did not have white skin at all. And no biblical scriptures will lead you to ever see that. Or the fact that Jesus was hidden from King Herod and he was put into places that were predominantly where people look like Africans and Ethiopians and so forth. People with melanin skin is my point. And how can you hide a white skinned, blue eyed person amongst people that predominantly had dark melanin skin? He would stick out like a sore thumb. And why would God even have him hide there, right? So it's funny how you get all these stories that directly gives you the orientation of melanin, that dark pigmentation within the skin, and how they always differentiated that, the Ethiopian skin. Can Ethiopian change his skin is a scripture, or I am black in the Songs of Solomon. Like you have various scriptures where it continues to talk about dark skin, but religions just cannot seem to be accepting of our Lord and Savior having melanin black skin because the racism that became apparent in this world today and how badly darks are portrayed and stereotyped and treated. Nobody would truly accept Jesus if they known that he looked like that of a dark skinned person. He's more acceptable in a white skin. And that's why the whitewashing began all throughout humanity. I mean, a lot of biblical characters are so depicted as white when nobody in the Bible had that pigmentation for the most part, you know. And that's my point, racism is an evil thing that Satan used, and the fact that you have so much inconsistencies with describing the characters in the Bible, Moses, the Egyptians, these are dark people. But now you have an entirely different storyline where these people are white skinned. And it's like, oh, nobody dark was in the Bible. But this the sad, you know, the sad light that spread it out of that. But a lot of characters, if not all characters, Samson was black. Samson had dreads and his locks grew. It even talks about this in the scriptures. And then when his hair was cut, which was the strength of his power, which Delilah figured out by seducing him when he was sleeping, getting him pretty much wasted, so to speak. You know, then his hair was cut off. He lost his power. But when his hair grew back long, and which is his locks, right? When he had 7 locks, and then he got his power back, which got restored to him, which came through his hair. All right, but they have Jehovah's Witnesses always demonizing it, and we know with hair it can be a little bit contradicting because you do have scriptures that say a dishonor of having long hair. Then you have scriptures where it talks about don't cut your hair, and then you have scriptures about Samson where his power came through his long hair. So I at least give you that one, But it's just sad all the inconsistencies of trying to whitewash these biblical characters and not teach the truth about history. And that's why blacks and people of dark skin, dark melanin complexions are so bothered down to this day, because people act like race is not important. But if it wasn't important, why would Satan go through these extreme measures to contradict the true look of these people in the Bible? Why we go through such dire methods to keep this concealed from the people? Like, why must everybody always be whitewashed down? And why must black skin be portrayed so evil, so badly, so violent, so negative? And even down to this day, everything about the Bible, it fits that of dark skinned people. Why it be slavery hanging from stakes or trees and beams, which happened to slaves. Then enslavement God talked about for so many centuries that will become of his people. And I would never support racism. I love all people, but to take away the importance of black skin, to take away the importance of those of color who suffer, and take away the true description of what Jesus is portrayed as, with hair like wool and skin like burnt fine brass in a furnace. I mean, all these scriptures that takes you directly to dark melanin skin, the area, the way the sun affected the skin and the pigmentations. White skin will burn in such conditions very badly because they don't have that much melanin present. So just to understand history and understand how so much was whitewashed, how the natives was whitewashed in America when they was predominantly dark skinned, and now you have all of these extremely just white skinned Indians now in Jerusalem. Now you have them with the satanic star, an entirely different group of white people who settled in this land that was not theirs, and now they're perceived as, oh, these are the Jews. That's why they're called Jewish, because they're not technically Jews, but they're like ish, like childish means to act like a child, and Jewish means to act like that of a Jew, which the Bible talks about. They claim that they are Jews and they are not, but they're a synagogue of Satan. That's a scripture. So just understanding how much Satan has taken from the dark race, the dark skinned people, and rather it be the natives, the Africans, the Persians, the Egyptians, like all of these particular groups and tribes and and all of this history whitewashed, and Jesus turned completely to a white skinned person, and all of these things. And the Watchtower does this. Look at all the descriptions of Jesus, right? He's a white man. Look at him in his heavenly form, white man. And he's a human at that when he's supposed to be a spiritual creature, since we don't go bodily up into heaven. But he's a white man, right? A white human. Guys depicted as white when they sometimes show his face, although at other times they show him as a bunch of colors, which would be more accurate at least. The angels are all depicted as dudes, and they're all depicted as white, right? And they're all depicted as white men. So that white supremacy continues to dominate in Jehovah's Witnesses like it does in various religions, of always portraying these characters as white skin and demonizing that of the black skin, the Ethiopian skin, the African skin, the original native aborigine, which means the dark peoples, their skin, the people from Nigeria and Niger, and how to originate with the word Negro and the nigger terms that all came with these words. I mean, everything about the Bible portrays dark skin, and rather be the oppression of those of dark skin. Jesus coming in the lowliest form, dark skin, the slavery, the imprisonments, the beats, the persecutions, the racism towards such people, the way that the governments and the kingdoms treated these people, and so forth. It all originates with dark skin and melanin skin. And soon I'll do a video showing you all of the history that was whitewashed, all the artifacts that was hidden, all of the ancient paintings that predate European society, where Jesus was always depicted as dark skinned, Apostle Paul, Peter, Saint Peter, even Mary, Miriam, Moses, all of these characters, Esther. But now you just have an entirely different appearance, which is extremely bothering when you know the historical value, and knowing that these characters were in fact melanin, dark skinned people. So that one is extremely one that bothers a lot of people from religion, is that they don't portray these characters accurately, and is extremely bothering. And Hollywood does the exact same thing when you watch the movie Exodus and all of these movies. Just look at the characters, and they're always picking white people to play these biblical characters all the time, or having white people talk for the characters, even if they portray them as dark. It's so saddening, the racism and the hatred toward the black skin, and how much it is not accredited to the biblical characters. Then you have the governing body being equal to that of Jehovah. And I've been saying this for the longest period. Jehovah God, according to Jehovah's Witnesses, is in fact the governing body. They'll make it like, oh no, it's God, and then you got Jesus, then you got us. But that's not true at all. Because everything about the setup itself, the pyramid setup at that, it is pretty much, in essence, the governing body is Jehovah God, who makes the doctrines, who can add to the scripture as they please, take from it, who renders the punishment and exercises vengeance upon themselves when people commit sins, who can shun you and make you go through this period of shame and humiliation and punishment according to whatever they deem as a sin, who can take everything from you or give it back to you in privileges as blessings, and make you pretty much become elevated within the congregations, or pretty much bring you down. Like, who has the power of life and death in the eyes of Jehovah's Witnesses? How is that not the governing body? They have elevated themselves to the status of Jehovah God because they act as if they are Jehovah God. Think about all the things that were only given for God to do, and then look at the things that the governing body does. Or think about all of the things in regards to God's Son, right, as the mediator of mankind, the only means of salvation, to truth, the only way, the light, the chosen one, the appointed one that God has approved of, that we shall listen to. They act like they include Jesus in their pyramid scheme of God, Jesus, in the governing body, faithfully slave, right? But that's not true. And I say this all the time. If Jesus is the only way to get to the Father, the only way to the truth, the key, right, to all of this, Yeshua, how can you act as if you are the mediator by saying, oh, humanity is going to die unless they come to Jehovah's Witnesses governing body and submit to us, or they're going to die in Armageddon? So essentially, you're saying that you are the mediator, because apart from Jehovah's Witnesses organization, nobody can understand the Bible, nobody can be saved, nobody can understand truth, and nobody will be rescued from Armageddon. They're going to all die, and they're going to be considered worldly, and they're not good enough. And if you even leave this organization, you're going to be shunned by us into death, because we act as God, and then God going to kill you. They add on top of that punishment. Like, just ask yourself, how is the governing body not that of the equal to Jehovah God, or not that of the equal as the mediator, like that of Yeshua, Christ, right? And that's what extremely is bothering to a lot of people that's XJWs. We saw this when we got into it. The worship of these men, they're elevated to godlike status. They are praised. They are worship. People worship the ground they walk on. They live according to whatever these men say. Whether it's a mistake, they still will praise it. Whether it's truth, they'll praise it. It don't matter what they do is what I'm saying. And there's not much truth that's coming from them. But my point is, no matter what they do, they can do no wrong. And they're always going to be viewed as inspired and the anointed and this and that. And the brainwash will always seem to worship these men. They will never understand that that's what they are doing. They'll just keep excusing, no, but we're worshiping Jehovah, and Jehovah put them in place. So you're not getting it. Go to the website. But they worship these men, and these men have essentially become Jehovah. Think about it. Jehovah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Jehovah consists of 7 letters. The governing body consists of 7 men. How are they not trying to make up that of Jehovah? Really pay attention to the subliminal messages. I see the things that are not easily to be seen because I seek it, right? These 7 men playing God, playing Jehovah, and also playing that of the mediator of Christ, which is extremely bothering and extremely difficult, for anybody to grasp that concept. God don't need man at all. He could have used stones to preach the good news. So now he's completely relying off of the governing body as his only means to get to humanity, and apart from them, the sacrifice of Christ isn't good enough. You can't understand it from their own narrative just reading the Bible alone. You have to have man's interpretation or you just can't get it. Like, understand how Satan is seeping in and taking over God's word. Is extremely bothering and extremely depressing to see how much religion is connected to Satan, but they continue to argue the opposite, So sad. Then you have Jehovah's Witnesses always demonizing paganism, right? Oh, you don't do birthdays, they're pagan. You don't do Christmas, pagan. You don't do Halloween, pagan. So you'll think, okay, well, fine, it's pagan. So let's give them that because they do have pagan roots. But then you adopt traits within the Jehovah's Witness organization and then try to justify it in your Watchtower magazines and on the broadcast and on the websites. Like that of wedding rings we talked about. Wind chimes is another one. The wedding dress. All the things about wedding is pretty much pagan. And the origins of it, just research it, look up the Wikipedias of these things. Wedding rings are extremely pagan, and they came from Romans, right? They were so many meanings to these things, like how they wear it on the third finger on the left hand because they believe that it's a vein from the finger that runs directly to the heart. Also how the rings connect with Saturnism and the worship of Satan through Saturnism and the rings of Saturn and all of these things that connects you with the devil as well. But like I said, witnesses don't understand this because they don't do research, because they're not permitted to look outside of the narrative of the governing body's biased narrative. It's a one-sided way that they see things, and that's not even due process in the court of law, right? Like, don't you have to present things from both sides to gather your analysis to understand what's really going on, or are you just going to take it from a one-sided narrative and be completely biased toward hearing the other side out, or already coming in with preconceived notions to just always believe your side? Like, you have to at least be impartial to understand the truth of what's really going on so that you can understand how you should make your verdict, especially if you're on a trial or any types of things of that nature. But Jehovah's Witnesses don't do that. That's why they always tell you, oh, go to the broadcast, go to the website, because they're only going to give you the stuff that comes forth from the governing body, the society, right? Because these men essentially are their mouthpiece. They are their brain, their thought process, everything that they stand for is these men. That's why they can only direct you back to the source, which is those men, but then say that they don't worship those men. They have brains, but it's just amazing that they even do pagan rituals and pagan celebrations and things of such. And they do rituals like this at Bethel, where they walk around tables a certain amount of times and do all kind of weird pagan type of ritualistic practices that has nothing to do with the scriptures, the way they do their beds, and it's so strict, and if you don't do it that way, you really would get in trouble for these ways. But the paganism of wedding rings, wind chimes, and all of these things that connects you with pagans, but then but if you do the birthday, you're gonna get shunned. But if you do a Christmas, you're gonna get shunned. Halloween, shouldn't it all be the same? If it's pagan, don't touch it. But no, wedding rings are okay, it's no big deal. Then they give you a magazine, and then when it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And that's the depressing part about it again with Jehovah's Witnesses. Then we go back into the field service report card and look at this picture you have here of Jesus knocking on doors, counting the clock for Jehovah. Now, this is extremely saddening when you read Matthew 6 and various other scriptures as well. And Jesus is the biggest contradiction to Jehovah's Witnesses organization. Yet they call him their reigning king and they believe in him, but don't do anything that Jesus taught. Rather it be the shunning which Jesus strongly condemned in Luke chapter 6, or rather it be the field service report which Jesus strongly condemns in Matthew 6 about not practicing your righteousness in front of men to be observed by them. The field service report is definitely being observed by men because they observe these field service report cards to pretty much calculate your spirituality to Jehovah. It's their way of buying spirituality and buying privileges and being elevated within the congregations by the elders and these older men, right? So they take the entire word of God and prove it invalid by making it into that of a business. You punching the clock, you working these hours, you're enriching these men by recruiting other people to become part of this brand, to help push this brand, this ideology, so that you can enrich them with more people to put into the contribution box. So pretty much it's a business. Hence, it was a business that grew because as Charles Taze Russell, it was actually a business. And then it later became the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. So you're pushing a man-made business. You're pushing a pyramid scheme. You're pushing a society, an organization, which they always seems to stress, and people don't catch that. And that's why they grading you. But I thought it was God that does these things in secrecy. He's always watching us, and we know he's watching us, but we don't technically have to see him standing over our, our heads, peeking through the windows, through our doors. You know, God is always watching and calculating the things in which we're doing so that he can render us accordingly, which is God's place to do that. But in Jehovah's Witnesses, no, you have men that's already judging you right now and taking vengeance into their own hands right now and paying you accordingly to your sins right now. So what's the point of judgment day? What's the point of God even calculating these things if we're already paying for it through Jehovah's Witnesses and the governing body is taking that place, right? Or what's the point of Jesus' sacrifice? Like all of it is invalid when you look at Jehovah's Witnesses, especially with the field service report card. And that argues for statistics, but why you got to put your name on the sheet? Statistics is just numbers. You don't need a person's actual name on it. But it's because they have to grade you. They have to calculate what you are doing and keep tabs on you, which is very cult related. They must know what you are doing as a member, that you are obeying and listening to everything that is complied, everything that makes up the organization. Like you have to be compliant to it. You have to be submissive to it. You have to do everything that you are supposed to do on this job, or you will be fired by means of shunning. So you put in your hours, you punch the clock, and as if Jesus and the apostles was knocking and looking around at people and they was counting time. Picture Jesus, hey, hold on, widows, hold on, prostitutes and sinners. Let me count how much time I was talking to you for. That was about 6 hours, 45 minutes. If I sit here 15 minutes longer, I can get the full hour of another hour to add to this report. Oh, I did give you this bread. Let's place that as a placement. And I gave, like, come on now. Y'all know Jesus and the apostles wasn't counting time because you don't need to. It's not about that. It's not about numbers. It's about the quality, not the quantity. We even saw they made apparent in Noah's day. God didn't care about the numbers. God cared about the hearts of the people and the quality of it. He wasn't concerned with the statistics, right? But Jehovah's Witnesses, they have to bring you a report card and grade your spirituality and observe you, these men, and be hypocritical, just like the nations do in the streets and on the roads, all over the place, which they do with street witnessing and so forth. Like they do so many things that God condemns, right? And then they tell you that, oh, you have to do these things. And the field service is so contradiction to the Bible in so many ways. Just, oh my gosh, really read Jesus' words. It will just blow your brain. Let's go to the next one. And this one that I've gathered myself, and I like to call this a subliminal message, where you can combine words and you can pretty much conceal the true meaning of it with some different meaning of why you've done it, but overall we understand the purpose and the principles. Jehovah's Witnesses uses the Watchtower. First of all, any sort of an image, a graven image of anything in the heavens, anything on earth, anything in the waters below, anything, anywhere you put it, God does not approve of images at all being used in worship, being used to symbolize his worship or anything like that. And then they use a tower, a watchtower at that, a man-made built image, right? And I just find it interesting that they use a watchtower. And then you go into biblical meanings and you go into words. And if you understand the Bible and you've really been doing your research, you will know that the watchers were referred to as the fallen angels and the demons because they were always watching mankind. And they was always studying and observing the things that was taking place in mankind, right? So they were referred to as the watchers. If you don't believe me, do your research on this, especially in the removed book of the Bible, Enoch, and all of the various other books that was removed from the scriptures, right? Now you have the satanic number of 66, which is so ironic when they removed all these books from the entirety of the Dead Sea Scrolls and the entirety of the Bible's canon, because religions and under political influences to deem what books to be approved and what books to be viewed as non-canonical. It's extremely saddening, and most religions are so compliant with these leaders that they don't essentially see that they took from God's word and added to it as they please. And it's no big deal about that. They'll just start rationalizing, maybe you don't need that. You do have the complete story of this and that and this and that. and it's so sad, but that's a whole nother story. But the demons, the fallen angels, the fathers and of the Nephilim that has sexual relations with the daughters of mankind, they're referred to as the Watchers, right? And then if you connect the Watchers with the tower, what do you have significant to the tower in the Bible that really stands out? And we all know it's the Tower of Babel, which was influenced by that of Satan and the demons to spread all of the knowledge to mankind, to make fame for themselves, to enrich themselves, to enclose everybody into their particular belief system, right? And to distribute everything that proceeded forth toward the people. And God didn't like that, so he spread it to people abroad, and they all went according to their own groups and tribes and so forth, and they interrupted the building of the tower, stretching all the way up into the firmaments of heaven, right? Which is a whole nother conversation too to get into. But so you have the tower, then you have watch. You connect these words with the Watchers, and then you connect it with the Tower of Babel, and you see that both have extreme demonic and satanic influences, which makes sense when you have Freemasons. That's the foundation of Jehovah's Witnesses organization, like it is with various other religions. You even look at some of the ancient gods, if you see in this picture depicted below, and you'll see that they have a tower on their heads. You look at the Tower of Babel, right? How it was depicted in ancient times. Then you look at just all of these connections in the watchtower. Then you know how the all-seeing eye always is watching from the very top of the pyramid. Then you have the watchtower, somebody watching from the very top. And we're not talking about the tower where you see danger coming and, oh, we're warning. Oh, no. Jehovah's Witnesses is so not going to fool me using that type of ideology. This is directly in relation to who they truly serve and get their instruction and power from, which is the Watchers, the demons, who Satan is the god of, who is the one who founded this organization, like just no different than the others. And then you have the tower, right? So now, rather than it being physical, it's more so metaphorical. And this is what you call a subliminal message, no different than Walmart having the word smart and law in it, which is like martial law with their connection to Homeland Security. And people always seem to throw conspiracies under the bus, but conspiracies dominated all throughout the Bible. Like Judas Iscariot conspired against Jesus Christ and had him murdered and sold him for revenue, sold him for value, sold him for pieces of silver, right? A blood sacrifice. All of these things takes you back to ancient biblical times. But then now Satan makes mockery of these things and present it as, oh, it's just some theory. And that's what people fall victim to. But we don't understand that Satan hides in plain sight, and his symbology, his subliminal messages is always around and in front of us, because Satan loves to leave breadcrumbs to let you know that he wants credit for what he's doing. But he can't be so direct so that you can understand that he is actually in existence. Satan can care less if you believe in him or not. As long as you don't believe in the truth, the Bible, God, and his son, that's all Satan is after. And that's satisfying to him, But the watchtower, and then you have the demons being called the Watchers, and the Tower of Babel, and the connections of all these things is extremely noteworthy and so bothering to me. And then you ask your question, should JWs be banned? Think about all of the things that we just talked about, and this is not even the surface. Like, we even scratched all of the surface of Jehovah's Witnesses. And then you look at how Russia banned them and how they're banned in various other countries as well, which is not just Russia. And some are for various reasons, right? They be not joining the military, which at least I throw them a bone with that one. But they should be banned as far as with all of the child sex abuse that they covered up and did not seek to provide, information to the local authorities so that these people can be labeled as child sex offenders and pedophiles and so forth, right? As predators, sexual predators, and how they didn't help the women who was being raped by elders and people in their local congregations. And they provided legal counsel for a lot of these people that committed the crimes and shunned the victims to protect the organization's name. Really look up these stories, because these are not made up, and you can find all of these stories readily available all over the place. Of course, not in the watchtower.org or the Watchtower broadcast, JW broadcast. Of course they won't show it there, but it's everywhere else, of course. And how should they not be banned when you are not protecting children? They're being molested, and pedophilia is being ran rapidly all over the world as an epidemic within organizations, causing millions of dollars being taken from your organization because of the lawsuits, and why you're downsizing and relocating and merging halls and all kind of things that you are lyingly trying to tell the witnesses why you're doing these things for, because they can't know the truth about it. But they should in fact be banned when you have molestation, rape, child sex abuse, and pedophilia acts that are taking place in there. When you have men who are more concerned with enriching the business rather than protecting the members. When you have so much wrong, when you have shunning that's leading people to suicide because they're losing their families. When you start to divide the family unit and dishonor it. When you start to promote so much evil and the fact that you once taught racism in the Watchtower through Rutherford, right? And as well as Charles Taze Russell, which we talked about in my last video, where you can quote the Watchtowers and how they spoke so illy about the Negro and considered it a waste of literature as well to be given to the black congregations because they couldn't read so well. I mean, racism was founded even as this organization, which is so sad to me. But it makes sense why they whitewash all the characters as well, and then try to tell you, oh, well, isn't that? But it's so sad. But they should be banned. They have so much evil within them. They were founded by evil and they commit evil acts down to this day. They are extremists because terrorists do the same things. They brainwash and indoctrinate their members to become extremely devoted and committed that they would do anything to appease these men. So what is to stop the elders or all the people within the Jehovah's Witnesses organization from doing something completely sinister if the governing body directed them to do so? Which various cults did when it came to mass suicides, when it comes to our love bombing, when it came to our killing and doing all types of things to sodomize children and women and just all of these evil acts that they use in the name of religion. It's so sad. And they in fact should be banned, and along with various other religions, especially the cults. But we just always want to see them all. They're just loving people knocking on doors. No, these are people that are indoctrinated so badly that they would do anything that the leaders tell them to do. Why did they knock on their doors in the first place, right? They'll rationalize, oh, it's because Jesus did it. But really, it's because the governing body tells them to do these things. And it's the truth, because all religions believe and a point to the Bible and Jesus and so forth. But you don't see all religions knocking on doors. They do whatever the doctrine promotes them to do. And Jehovah's Witnesses, just like Mormons, promotes the door-to-door ministry, right? The recruitment, and the fake happiness and the fake joy. Or you're so happy when you're a member. But Jehovah's Witnesses are so depressed and so saddened and so let down. But they continue to hide it with false pretenses, But they, in fact, should be banned because so much evil is coming out of this organization. So dangerous. And it would jump you into the Beard's contradiction. And I like that how I put this together because you can see that Jesus depicted as a white man in a bodily human form, but yet they claim that they're against the rapture, which is so contradicting to me that you depict biblical spiritual beings as humans in form. Like you'll show us a human Jesus with a human body. You'll depict him as a white man predominantly, and you'll show him even in his glorified heavenly form as a white man and as a human. And on top of that, he has a beard. So contradictory to everything, right? Especially when it comes to the teachings. Then they use the hippie reasoning. Oh, you're like a hippie if you knock on doors with a beard. Remember that story where a guy knocked on the door and somebody was like, shut up, you hippie. And he closed the door on him. Yeah, they make up stories. Oh, it was a guy. Let's say his name was Jack because we don't use his real name and blah, 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 blah. They give you made up stories and it's circulating. It gets spread all around like rumors. And then you start quoting it yourself. The hippie reasoning, which is extremely prejudiced and so racist toward that of hippies. Like, they're not bad people. But you got a beard, you like a hippie. People won't take you serious. So, yeah, slam the door. So you shouldn't have a beard. Because there's no scriptural basis to really demonize beards at all. They have nothing on that at all. And in some countries, witnesses are allowed to dress down and wear beards so that they can reach out to people in distant parts who will be a little scared if they saw people not coming in their forms. Right? And then look at this one. The most clear biblical passage to condone beards come from Leviticus 19:27. You shall not cut the hair on the sides of your heads, talking about your facial hair that goes up on the side of your head. Neither shall you clip off the edge of your beard. To cut off another man's beard, according to Samuel 10:4, is an outrage. So you have a scripture of God directly directing people to not even touch their hair, and he considers it as something that's an outrage if you were to cut it off, right? Because it was a person's manhood and it had an extremely significant value toward those in biblical times. Hence why Jesus Christ, the apostles, Moses, everybody you can name in the scriptures pretty much had beards, really thick, full beards at that. But now all of a sudden beards are so sinister and you can't knock on doors, you can't preach, you can't do anything if you got this beard because it's so unacceptable when you're dressing groom and you're not supposed to have it. And even in biblical times, the only time they cut beards was in times of mourning, right? Like when they ripped off their outer garments and then they started to shave and fast and so forth. But the custom was to have a beard in biblical times. And in some cases, they even have long hair, which is so ironic, right? So I just find it so crazy that you have so many passages that condones beards and you have zero that discredits having a beard, like an actual law don't have a beard. But then Jehovah's Witnesses make it as if it's law because they started to add and create doctrines, right? Because they get to add to the scriptures as they please and take away from it, as all other religions did as well. How they took all these books away from the scriptures and give you bits and pieces of the storyline and lean toward demonizing other books as non-canonical, which is so saddening to me. Now the Bible once again has 66 books, the satanic number. How ironic is that? 666. But that's just something to really think about, though. And you can't have beards while you're on earth, but then when you go in heaven as an anointed, God gonna say, "Hey, get your beard on." Get your 144,000 anointed swag on, and get your beard. And it's so contradicting. That man has this hair growing on him that God made apparent on men, but then he telling you, "Oh, you know what? You shouldn't have a beard at all. Why not just make us without the beard?" But it's so contradicting. And then the no blood, I can't begin to name how many witnesses died because of this no blood doctrine. And what's funny is the Bible is against the consumption of eating blood, but then they take it to the extreme and tell you that if you get a needle on your arm, and just because you can, in rare cases, if you're extremely damaged and hurt, you can be fed intravenously, then it's eating. So I guess every time you got a shot, you just had breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So if you got a tetanus shot, that was breakfast. If you got a booster shot, that was lunch. And if you got your blood, or I ain't gonna say blood, but if you got any form of a needle within you, they gonna consider that eating. Or when they draw blood, let me guess, did they just starve you? Since going intravenously in is eating, so taking it out. What, did you just fast? So that's fasting then, right? I could use that. So if I wanted to fast and they wanted to do it that way, hey, take the blood out of me, since taking it in is eating according to a witness. So taking it out should be fasting. But that wouldn't work, especially if you was fasting for God, especially in biblical times. So they'll take things and they'll flip them and twist them in these weird ways to make you start to think, yeah, it's kind of like eating. But it's not eating. Eating is when you put something on your taste buds, you taste it, you consume it down the natural way, and you eat it. That's what natural eating and consumptions are. But they'll take it, oh no, you're trying to save your life with a blood transfusion. It's extremely bad. God's going to kill you. You better not do it. Get your no blood card. Get the liaison committee here now. And then they speak for you and get you killed. Get your sons killed, your child killed, your mom killed, your dad killed. Then hit you with, well, they're in paradise now, so it's no big deal. Just keep preaching the good news and keep doing what you're doing. God loves you. Jehovah loves you. And they're getting you killed, and they're rejoicing about it. Hey, they died for God. Yay. Little Stephanie's dead now. Yay, she did it for God. And it's not for God. You're dying for pointless doctrines made up by men who are not in affiliation with that of God or that of his son. And it's so sad that they use in the scriptures as a means to support all of these cultist teachings. So sad. So reflecting on all of these steps just pretty much gather the overall fundamental that you're not Jehovah's Witnesses, you're Satan's witnesses, because the organization was founded by Freemasons, which connects you towards Satanism, rings of Saturn and Saturnism worship, or how Saturday, which is a celebration of Saturn, why the word Saturn Day derives from that. People don't understand the meanings and why Saturday's on the 6th day of the week now, and Saturn is the 6th planet supposedly from the sun. Don't get me started on scientism and religion, because it's so bad how the Bible don't support no globe earth. But if you talk about that, hey, you're so dumb and an evil conspiracy theorist. But the scriptures do not support a globe earth, but that's a whole nother conversation. But just understand that Jehovah's Witnesses is no truth found in them. It's lies. It's false doctrines. It's contradictions of Jesus' teachings. It's apostates. It's wolves in sheep's coverings. It's pedophilia of children. It's death from no blood. It's contradictions of so many things and worship of man ultimately. And it has no connection with God, but has so many connections to Satan. Get out of her, my people, is what God is telling you. Leave Jehovah's Witnesses alone, just like a lot of these religions, because they're just going to get you killed. And Jesus is going to deny them to their faces. Yeshua, I do not know you. Get away from me, you workers of lawlessness. He don't know these people. Who else coming in his name other than religions, right? It's so sad. Wake up and really see the truth that is found in the scriptures, and really understand all of the things that are hidden from you. And God made it clear, which I'll end it with, is that in Revelation, he who takes away from the scroll, God will take away from his portions, take away his portion from the trees of life, and he will add to the books of this scroll. God will ask him the place that are written about in this scroll. God put a curse and a threat upon tampering with his word. You think Satan wasn't going to do it? What does he have to lose? He's already cursed. He's already condemned to death. He already is receiving the plagues that are to come. God put the curse there because he knew it was a probability that it could take place. If it wouldn't have been, God wouldn't have felt the need to even include it at the end of Revelation to not tamper with his word. So if you really don't believe that the Bible has been tampered with as far as books was taken out of it, many books, right? Especially like that of the book of Enoch for various reasons, because it promoted so much truth, so many things, exposing the demons, the devil, Satan, the way that they took over mankind, them by particular name, how God's creation truly is depicted from the scriptural applications. Even the Bible gives you that, but Enoch completes it, where it be the luminaries, how the earth is really a flattened stationary plane, and just so many things that God talks about, but we don't seem to accept that because we get our interpretation from men who demonizes anything contrary to the popular belief, just like they dealt with the whitewashing of the characters and so forth. Please, people, wake up and see that you're being lied to, and you really need to do your research in regards to this, especially Jehovah's Witnesses. It is a cult by definition, and it's doing so much bad. Much love to all.